Okay, we got. It just occurred to me. This is gonna be episode 100 of Underground Science, and what a topic I just stumbled on. I keep looking at North America like, what's going on here? Like, I figured out there's a current generally coming this way, which is cool, and then generally coming across this way, but still, like, a lot of the detail of the nuance I've just kind of generalized to like there's cross currents that are producing novas. There's a pressure over here that kind of holds it over in this region. The Earth is also expanding. So the current was initially going through here, and then it started to branch over into here as the Earth expanded. Like it physically moved over this way as the Earth expanded. So maybe let me. I've been looking into Hawaii eruptions. I found looks like a good channel for information on like long term technical info on the like Hawaiian volcanics, geology type topics in a more technical sense. So I was looking there. I've been looking around, looking at things, and don't know why I looked for this. It came up for some reason, like in passing. I think what was happening, I was watching one of those like top 20 places, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, like, here it is. That's right. I'm like explaining the chain of events. I was trying to find this video that we were watching earlier with my family that we didn't finish because we went to eat. But I threw it on even though I don't usually control television. I feel it's kind of weird to watch things with family. Anyway, besides the point, it was on. I was interested. I was trying to find it. I couldn't find the same video, so I was looking, and here I was like, you know, it's been a while since I looked at this. This is so odd. Like maybe I should like revisit it for a second. So I started just kind of looking around. I ended up having to pull up Google Maps or Google Earth, that is, not just Maps, so that I could really look at it from the side. And I found it. So I've been talking about in general sense. Let's get rid of this. In a general sense, how there's like a hand of God here with the wrist. Of this here, basically, with fingers that the fingertips are certain locations. So like this is a thumb and this is an extended fingertip here, because this is how currents flow, kind of thing, where I've talked about even like the entire Earth has that structure, as crazy as that is, in my video. Is it that far ago? This one. Oh my god. It's like it's so recent. Oh my god, I've been pumping these out. Oh wait, is this it? 99? I think this is 90. 100. Anyway, it doesn't matter. It's really not that important whether it be an exciting thing at 100, although anyway. So, I don't want to delay too long, but I started looking at this and kind of get a line of reasoning on what was happening. I noticed like, okay, first of all, what happened is my question. What happened here? How did this form? Not only is it a hexagon, but I noticed here there's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, pretty much a hexagonal base. but then hexagonal pillars. So like it's known for its hexagonal structures on it. Although I was looking at it, like I wonder if they're more sheet-like than like within it than on the outside. And the top is real flat. So I was just looking at it, and I've been kind of in what it made me think of is like Bermuda at the center of this. Like it's like a node in some region. So I started kind of like, okay, like I could, it's too like focused to even be looking at here. So what is going on? Is this like a node? So I started kind of pulling further away from this peak, looking around it to see if it has some kind of ring structure or anything. Nothing like distinctly immediately popping out, although I do see some kind of arcs out here. That's real far out though. At that point, like I'm literally just zooming out. Pull this mouse over here. So nothing like as distinct as like how Bermuda. I kind of have to use Google Earths for this. I'm sorry, my mouse. It must be meant to be that way. The way Bermuda is the center of this chunk, which is a mirror of the positive, negative with a positive, positive with maybe a negative. This also even looks like it has this snake eye with the mouth just not opened. Like had this river been more intense, flowing actually inward when it was being formed, because that's how it formed, was by a current going this way. Besides the point. I know I'm probably losing people by saying that. That's what I've been talking about, though. Things of that nature and like describing it. So stick around for a second. Let's go back. So where is this? So then I went to this map. The back to the magnetic anomaly map underneath North America, and I tried to find where is it, like, so here I've in the past there's basically a connection across here, so that is here where this connection goes, and then it physically overlays like a terminal. Where is it exactly? I feel like it must be, I'm pretty sure it's that one. It's not as visible in my I think it's here, like right there. It's kind of small. It's hard to find without actually knowing exactly. Like it looks like there's kind of an overlay on top of a terminal. Just take my word for it. At this point, pardon me. Maybe it's here, like the exact. I think maybe here. Yeah, there it is. There it is. There's the center, the outer ring of the terminal type thing. The current coming in and just like overlaying it pretty much. Center here though, outer ring here of this like node type structure, which is I've in the past associated with this thing here, this just structure here. So this is kind of related to that. So I know it's not this. Yellowstone's over here. So then I started looking like, where is this? Is there something of any relevance to this thing? The tower here. To make it like make sense in the why it's there. Like why is this here basically? What made this form besides its like name? And it's pretty much here, so I'm like, well, maybe there's some association to this, like sending a current out this way that like physically ramps upward. So it's really a current that was flowing in one direction, causing it to have. Let's find it again. It's around this object, right over here somewhere. There it is. So it looks kind of like it's got like a ramping going on. And sort of like there's if anything, there's an inlet channel here that then has like a boundary. So it's the current maybe. I'm not sure. Just a thought, something about an. It sort of looks like an inlet for the energy that was like able to get into this structure to enlarge it. That kind of went through it. Which maybe is why there's like a fracture down this and here. Reminiscent of what I've been talking about more recently. Here. I drew all over it, so it's a little less excitingly like obvious, but there's basically a dividing line for the big island, that all of the bottom of the orange is the big island with Mauna Loa, that's a Hualale, and Kohala, like literally wrapping around. And then the top half, as we found out, like it divides also sideways, but also upward. So it has this like perhaps something of a similar nature to this, where it has like a fully splits one half, and then the other half gets split into like maybe 5 ratio segments. Or something. I don't know. It looks almost like a peace sign that didn't like split the portion there. When here did this portion, but not this portion. Whew. Crazy. Okay. As cool as this is, it really brought my attention though to the more general area, and I was looking around, and it occurred to me initially. I was like, well, it's kind of like there's some sort of field going on here, like more than just novas. There's actually like a field that kind of goes up here, and it occurred to me there's a field centered on this is what I just realized. Here's Yellowstone right here, like the heart of Yellowstone. Here's a field line, like a magnetic field that goes out and back, and then has this like region. And then the other side isn't as like apparent, so it's almost like it got overwritten on this side by currents flowing in this way. Like as this was occurring, currents flowed in maybe this way. But like there's a spiral going on here that then has some sort of almost like I don't want to say this is what happened, because it sounds people who haven't been listening to my most recent videos are like, what in the fuck? And then B, it's not necessarily something I feel that adamantly about in the moment, but it almost looks like maybe a particle could have been forming on top of a chakra that was physically a spinning vortex, and then the particle was like dislodged this way out here and like went exited. Oh my god, this mouse. The other one scrolls out way too easily. Here. So basically, it's very much like this structure. This is the critical like ties. Like, it's not just under North America. On around Fiji here is, if I can turn this well. Oh my god. Basically a particle region that has a field on one side that's kind of less detectable, of less defined features, just kind of generally outward propagating, whereas this side has very sharp features, very like deep indentations from current flows that were like drilling into, causing this like blue region, and then purple were like amassed in a line. So in this particles fields like interior line here, I'm not even sure what this is synonymous with. I don't know what to make of these things, like in terms of a more like physics type of what it parallels, because I really look across dimensions in this analysis to try to like understand, and that doesn't really compute to me. Maybe there's something that if I was aware of it, I'd be like, aha. So there's this ammonite here from which I've talked about again in the episode, I think it's yesterday. I looked 24. Yeah, 24. So this ammonite structure here that formed because of currents flowing into underneath Australia from the mantle puncture hole over here in India, which was punctured by a vortex weapon that caused the mantle to upwell and space to fill into the earth to then push the mantle upwelling into happening, and then it filled underneath the crust and caused the ocean floor to be formed. And as the current swept underneath all of the crust, it then collided in a like major way in what appears to be here, but also related, like maybe there before, like before the West Coast was even formed, was more like closer to this region, and like they're energetically tied in some way, or positive, negative, or not necessarily that the Hawaiian sphere particle formed here, but like this magnetic field thing. And then let's check it out on the map now. Is it visible? I was like, is it visible? Okay, so here's Yellowstone, basically at this like mouth opening in this region. So from this region here, and then up to here, I believe. This one I looked for, this is physically along this underlying boundary here. And then this one's not quite, let's see. One, to make it easy, minus 121, 46.5, something in that region. So it's pretty much up to here-ish. Not even really up to the whole way. Oh my god, is it to the Scablands? And then within it, right here is this chain of volcanoes running along the line. So here's the boundary of that, is this structure basically right here. And then up through that like ring segment is volcanoes. Up until here, then it looks like that's almost, there's the yin and yang running across it. There's the Scablands. Potholes Coulee is just north of this structure. Almost like it's like a current flowing around that then has like an outflow side channel that really went through this region. Because it looks like there's... I really feel like there's a strong possibility that there were like water currents in a figure 8 on the surface here, maybe? That might be reaching too far, but like because of all the sand, and it fans out like here we don't really see this like hilledness. Now that I'm looking at it, like the boundary of the figure 8 is very smooth, relatively speaking, but outside of it, it's got a spray, kind of like what I was just kind of suggesting up here. So that's maybe is suggestive that there was actually physical water involved in the process. And not just like underlying lava causing upwelling, but also water involved in ways that are maybe a little more detectable in western coast. Maybe because it was to a degree underwater. Or like where the water was gushing from the earth. Okay. So. Also Juan de Fuca plate. If we like it from the Yellowstone's figure 8, it just kind of abruptly ends here. But if we just continue like following the curvature, it kind of generally goes here and then following again. This curvature generally would be going, maybe even is right there detectably, going sideways through it to here. So there's really, maybe through here, it's hard to see, maybe that's part of it. So it like physically reaches a maximum extent of the Yellowstone's, like this ring here, figure 8, which is like its magnetic field, a current of particles, atoms, flowing in its magnetic field, the systems that are physically reaching out to this boundary, it seems, and influencing it there, but some reason not so much here, because I guess the current kind of built maybe at like the bend back point, and there's kind of like a spike of energy, like a tends to happen at like the arc, at the center of an arc. There's like, so I was thinking in the same way related to this, like where's the center of this? Like maybe here, maybe that's like if I'm looking for like a peak volcano along the like this arc, maybe it's here. One. Let me write it down. I wanna make sure to get real close to exact. If it is related to a mountain. Okay, we have now gone to Oregon. It's a little further out than this actually is, so I'd probably am not. That was this. There may be a stretch of like up, down that's more detectable. I'm thinking like here. This here looks, I don't know. I guess this is probably actually in. So the center of that, I guess, is probably what I'm actually looking for. Yeah, so maybe this one then. I'm trying to turn it. Yellowstone is here. Its magnetic field. So maybe it. Maybe that's not the actual boundary then. I mean, it's kind of. It probably is related to the current flowing just underneath and then breaking through here. Maybe, although in the past I've talked about it differently. It's crazy. It's probably always things and none of them, and I'm probably wrong about everything, and fuck my life. Oh my god. Okay, so we want to check if I'm just like, maybe like this is Mount Shasta or something right here. Or a different, like, really. Something. It's different something. Okay. We are again too far to the side. Although that's not what I put in, is it? No. That is, okay. Okay, I guess I gotta do it the other way. Like, where is it, like, this mountain? Okay. 44, basically. 44. And then 122.71. Wait. Is that the not right one? Oh. Okay. Okay. 44, 1. Yeah, I mean, whatever I was just looking at is generally here, I guess. 121.79 is actually. Nothing really distinct here. I wonder if there is a... like because of a kind of orbital thing going on. Like it's, even though it's here, down here, maybe it's a little inward on the surface. To a point where it's not actually a position. Like here's Mount Shasta. Let's see. Just writing on my cutout of Oahu. Oh, Lord. 140, or 41.4. Okay, just about there. 122.2. I want to like cheat and make it. Okay, that's where I wrote, like right there. I'm like, is it possible that there's like a hot current and a cold current? And a cold current has like an opposite effect where like mountains are caused over here by the really deep indentations, right? And these are like, because this is weird. Like this structure right here is very much like suggestive that it caused this. I gotta zoom out. Zoom out of here. Zoom out of here. We gotta zoom in on this. Like, is this... Okay, so this is a lower terrain, like a basin. That makes sense. Okay. So from that, this is maybe there. Not sure if that's actually the right location. It's such a pain to go between these and back and forth and back and forth and figuring out where things are. It would be cool if they had a Google Maps collaboration where it just can be like, they just overlay one another and can be filtered, faded back and forth. That would make it so much faster and easier. Oh my god, I'm just... So, that's what I got pretty much, I guess. I don't want to sit here too long. I guess I should keep looking at this. Is it possible there was a current above it? Whether or not it was above it, wherever the current was, it was a current, figure eight current, magnetic field type of current below the surface for certain, shaping this region. Whether or not it was also causing above the surface current, for sure the surface was being shaped to reflect it, and even in a way where it created like ripples off of it, specifically in a way that are like related to the figure eight, and then off of the figure eight having a yin yang structure divided here. I'm not sure why exactly. And then flowing this way through here. Probably through here. Through here. And then maybe detectable in Asia. Or where would have been adjacent to that? I need to look. It's probably actually not. It's probably Australia that I need to be looking at. Let's see. Okay, North America is not on this. Well, let's just think of it like this. Here was Papua New Guinea. Here was Australia to here. I think this part was to this first Papua New Guinea was 2 nodes here, but then there was another node down here and another down here. I think this one went to here, and then the middle one went to there. That's not really visible, I guess, for some reason. Maybe that's it. That's all there is that, maybe. So that would suggest that the figure eight is really visible, maybe. Maybe, because that would have reached there. The figure eight would have been flowing, actually. Well, pretty much, maybe like centered on that, like this right here was kind of centered to the overall region. Start filming. Oh my god. It's like fucking TV just puts fake stories in place of like the real world we live in. Like, what are we doing? Where it's to a point where when I Google when did Yellowstone and it finishes it with film. What the fuck, guys? Oops. Pardon me. Okay. Back to what I was doing. Wonder the magnetic field is visible then, like over here. Maybe that. It's so hard to say what's going on here. A lot of this would be like unrelated, subsequent added material accreted around it as just continental or oceanic crust, rather than as like a sufficient amount to be continental crust, which really requires like continuous currents overlaying one another. Where over here it kind of just fills the space with not as much material, even though it's more dense. So maybe here actually has some aspect of it still there, and maybe even this is, maybe that's how the Indonesian archipelago got its arc. It was actually the next arc out. Because essentially, where would it... So that would suggest that Australia was not directly attached to the over here, but instead that whole it still had like island structure next to Papua New Guinea. This region, pardon me, what is it? Is it the Philippines? Okay. Indonesia. What? Is that part of Indonesia? Province. Oh. This mouse wheel is just getting worse. Okay. I know how sad that probably was, but that's okay. Mouse wheels? This fucking guy. Oh my god. Okay. Is it possible that it like ballooned out? Initially it was here, but then it started to balloon out more, like... I don't know, it doesn't have to be related. I've generally just thought it was... Let's go back to where it comes from. What? Like, there's a current coming across here, generally speaking, out underneath this region, which then, once the ocean starts to open because of the bonds breaking between continents, as they're just severed enough to, like, be able to be pushed apart, pretty much. Then the current freely flowed out like this, I believe, and filled the space and went generally this way. Like, the general current got trapped between Australia and Asia and just channeled this way. Let's see. See, Indonesian archipelago, it doesn't say start filming. I mean, I know there's not like a recent like show called Indonesian Archipelago, but oh dear God. Same problem though. Hilarious. I'm explaining. Oh look how this one figured out that, of course not asking some like... Ew. Very complex. Almost like they were a part of a Yellowstone's magnetic field process. most of which emerged Java and Bali. Huh. Subduction of the Indian plate beneath the Eurasian plate formed the volcanic arc in the western Indonesia. This chain of active volcanoes, blah blah blah. Dominated by Cenozoic age formations. Ranging from 66 million to pretty much present. Minor Paleozoic. Paleozoic, where is that? Oh. I don't know why I didn't just have the number. It's telling me, like, geologist. Devonian. So pretty much the whole of it is dated to when the Earth was expanding. Permian to Tertiary. Okay. Yep. So that fits. Totally fits with the general things going on around these currents involved in making Yellowstone. From here and here, crossing, producing a vortex, and then a figure 8 orbital, maybe, probably actually orbital. Pardon me how I use that interchangeably, even though they're not the same in science, and distinctly not the same in science. I still use them interchangeably. I'm kind of glad that I do. I feel like it's maybe a little too, like, pushy to make them separate when they're pretty much the same word. Yeah, okay, well, and probably actually, like, describe the same process. More importantly, probably actually describe the same things going on, just not comprehended as to why. So, like, to separate them forcefully because it's not the same meaning maybe is a little far. 'Cause I feel like I've experienced that a lot. People, like, it's not in the criticisms I get of the few that I get because people won't dig very deep. So that's about as far as I get. They're like, it's orbits, not orbitals. You keep saying figure 8 orbital, you mean orbit, I guess, right? You mean orbit, right? Like, alright, fine, dude. Relax. Anyway, so we're seeing an orbit of currents that generally was focused on Yellowstone that appears to have gone beyond the boundary here well before expansion. Although maybe... so this one is underneath. really no sign of that. Is that? I don't think that's even this. The structure. Because here's Fiji. It's just right next to Fiji. So it must be here. This general region. Here's Samoa. Yeah, it's between Fiji and Samoa. So that structure is generally here. Which then had a... Also, that's where this is where another volcanic arc where Tonga is, which Nova'd when it or no, Tonga's here. Pardon me. They're part of these arcs where there's like a... I've talked about like this region in the past, probably in something with like an angel. Let's see, angel. No. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. It's probably back here. Somewhere back there. I've talked about this region more in depth. Of how it has like snake features that are positive and negative connected, that then one of the snake features wraps around here this way, one goes this way. They produce volcanoes and then divots, like rows of little like notches that are extended rather than like individual eddies like up here. This is making me think like it's possible that I don't know, that the top of a volcano is actually caused by like a empty beneath but a boundary. I don't know. This also is reminiscent of North America. So let's go back to North America here. This region up to here. It even has maybe a North America side here a bit. Like out further. It's so hard to make out what happened. Like it's like it was basically doing it, and then the surface this was occurring on just moved with the imprint, and then it continued like where the currents were colliding. Not just like doing it. It's like the currents were colliding at the point doing this, having this effect, and then like the surface itself was like moved outward so as to be exposed in where like the continent itself where it was happening, because this looks like it was physically happening at Yellowstone based on that it has this here as well as this and this, and it physically has the same like a almost like maybe it wasn't exactly at Yellowstone, but it energetically like they were positive, like that was a positive, this is the negative. Like it's not a dense mass, it's actually a liquid mass, kind of like how Mauna Loa is a fluid material of low viscosity magma, while Mauna Kea seems to just be like a cold, dense mass that's probably not really a volcano. Although maybe it is by like it's like containing steam that builds up that then vents. And maybe it could explode violently because of that, but like I don't think it's really my impression is it's really not a volcano at all. It just had some outgassing. It really formed as like a dense mass that had like a counter liquid, like hot and cold, like pretty much like the cold to the hot of Mauna Loa. And it pretty much, that's my interpretation of it, kind of thing, is because that's just what happens. And then between them, they tend to have like a separator of something to keep the systems generally separate. And that seems to happen in Hawaii. Over here, here's Mauna Kea, Mauna Loa, which is erupting right now. And some general barrier that probably exists, like more here in this region where this current just like goes around because there's this dense mass there. Whereas this is like a liquid, dense, solid thing that's not really like, it's just not a liquid. Maybe it's venting gases when it stores gases well, but it's not really a volcano in the way this is. Same thing where maybe this is a lot more like, or Yellowstone is a lot more like this region, Mauna Loa, whereas Mauna Kea is much more like the mass that's just kind of there, and then they form like opposite. I don't know because it's so hard to tell, and I'm lone wolfing it here, seemingly, although also maybe not at all. Pardon me. Part of my ignorance, please. Okay. Like, it does give the appearance of what was, I forgot what I was saying. It's got to be related. Like, and then this one, if this one actually, now that I think about it, doesn't really have the same. It doesn't have the same features on this side, but maybe that's because it was forming, like the particle maybe was out here, and then it was extending even. Let's see when these islands formed. Like, when did Fiji form, I guess? $150 million started to form. Actually, because like I mentioned earlier, there's a strong reason, because Yellowstone occurred late, there's a strong reason to believe this current was actually initially going down this way, and not actually passing a boundary that was here until the Earth started to expand, and then post 66 million years, the direction of the current was just physically more in the direction of into North America, which then caused it to shift, where like the focus of the current was colliding with the other like more widely distributed current that's just sweeping broadly across North America, while there's like a small narrow current sweeping narrowly across the western half. And where they're colliding, they're just so maybe this is where this is not actually the same event, but in like a repetition of it, where like initially where they were colliding maybe even was over under Australia, where there's so many figure eights, it's ridiculous. Like here's one down here. There's a big one that cuts across actually through here down this way. It just got like destroyed so much through this way. And then the ammonite structure where the current, basically there was like a boundary, a circular region that was forming by the currents from all directions, kind of pushing it into being more so than elsewhere, because that's where they were converging, creating like a node thing that then physically the currents just overwhelmed it and got into the boundary and started to like empty the innards by spiraling in it, creating this ammonite structure. So there's just a bunch of like nova, like bunch of novas here. I went through that in the Australian ammonite video, which still seems pretty applicable since it just keeps coming up as related to things I've been looking into recently. But for sure there's a bunch of figure eights here. So that maybe was initially, and then as it moved away, like maybe like the basically this like general mass was had a current flowing through it that was physically shaping it, and as it did so, maybe it was involved in like leaving behind a trail of this like core particle that was breaking apart as the currents like rolled it around in here, like shaped some sort of like particle into being like a shallogram, and then took that particle like a shallogram. So like shaped a particle into being, but then took it and started to like strip the parts away by just the sheer amount of current flowing. Let's find a good one. Here's one, a mid inner particle stable. So like there's an inner stable particle kind of like here where it's rolling initially. Hawaii was, is the hypothesis, rolling initially with a matrix covering it that is like of this nature, that is the emperor seamount. And then as it loses more of the matrix, at some point in the process it changes its direction, at which point it perhaps is like flowing in here initially in this region, and then bends this way and leaves the system, like gets small enough to just exit the system. I don't know. I'm not sure why that would produce the seamount. The seamount really seems related. Here it is, to this current coming this way from over here. Here's the mantle puncture hole. Here's a boundary that it formed naturally in the process, that it essentially was flowing out this way and just kept flowing out this way, especially once the Pacific was opening. So then it had space to flow into, and it flowed out here and collided with counter currents. Is kind of what I was thinking. It collided with counter currents here, which really maybe were actually over, if anywhere, like on this side of Australia, I feel like. at that time. Like, and doesn't make sense though. Maybe here. It's so hard to tell because it definitely got moved around. But so maybe like that current was at some point more directly flowing into this. Like it's way down here, so this current wouldn't be flowing into it, but it was closer, so maybe. I don't know. I'm pretty sure the current was flowing across here. And then, like, if we look here, there's a very, like, low boundary one that, like, goes way down at the base here. And then rides can go down here, too, it looks like. But generally, it goes across here. And then, because this current's coming up this way, it, like, lifts it up. So it lifts it. And then it comes down this way and flows in here. That reminds me. I'm really not sure. Maybe this really isn't related. Like this is from the current, but the seamount chain maybe really is caused by a particle. I'm fairly certain there's no actual, like, traditional hotspot. Or mantle plume, sorry. There's a hotspot in that there's mantle material stored within the particle of Hawaii that was a single particle of the entire seamount chain that broke apart, and its mantle material, because it was like an Earth, its mantle material is still stored within it. In that way, it has magma, so it's got like a hot spot, but it's not sourced, like connected energetically. The magma, it does not directly connect and feed from the mantle as is supposed. Like it's really has to be a very narrow channel. There's some evidence I was finding that seems to suggest, I don't know if I have it. It just seems to suggest that, what the hell was I saying? That there is no mantle plume as hypothesized. Some other underground thing, not at Yellowstone, but at Hawaii. Let's look at. The Hawaiian plume experiment. Where's the actual images? I know there's images. Model. There's actual images that are like, if anything, it's feeding into the earth and not the opposite. That's what the one I saw looked like. Like it's got like a little thread that's feeding into the earth from it, and no substantial, kind of like this, but even more focused looking. The one I saw. why it won't. There it was. This, like, what? It really looks like it's just ejecting heat into a cooler surroundings and not being fed by the mantle whatsoever. Which kind of makes sense if it's like the center of the Pacific, like it has the least heat from the Earth reaching it in some sense. Okay. Um, okay, so that's definitely related to this. Here and here and here. Does it have this other leg too? Like, I don't want to say it's this. It looks way too far over. Like, it almost needs to branch and connect to off of. Like, it would almost have to be like here. I don't know. But at that point, this is definitely forming though from a current that was coming from generally over here, which must have had a current coming from over here. This current, generally speaking, went up this way, physically went around the North Pole, and then caused it, and then went this way, down here. But when that happened exactly, I'm not sure. It might not have happened until there was enough of a backstop, like generally flowing this way, producing like a backstop. Because the current maybe initially just flowed mostly this way. By like the spinning of the earth. And then, like pressure built up over there though, so it basically encouraged a like beam the other way, sort of like here in where like probably there was a puncture hole or some kind of outlet here equivalent where magma flowed upward and generally went this way, but then like built a mound. And then it seems like it produced like a steady stream of like a beam this way, although I could be mistaken and just wanting it to be that way because I'm like, what? It seems like it's probably fed by, and so maybe it doesn't actually have a beam like outwardly producing a like divot versus the mounding. So maybe there is something of that nature though going on where like there's a first aspect of this where it like produces generally like a wide fanning mounding distribution that then is a backstop to a narrow like carving distribution. Kind of makes sense to me. I don't know if that exactly in that case. Okay, I think that's enough for now. We've made some progress. I'm just scratching the surface, it looks like, of what the potentials are here. It looks like we have, though, at least a boundary that is, like, related to another boundary, and then a figure eight that's related to another figure eight, and a region around it that's related to another region. That's really interesting, and that itself, this region over here, is related to Australia, so like the whole of it really is promising and interesting. Maybe we can see. Initially, I was wondering if like this thing, but over here, the like opposite one here, has some relationship to it. When it started to pop in my head that maybe there's some features. It's generally here, but it looks like it's energetically tied to this, almost like a pair. Like this is the ammonite like nucleus, but this is some like secondary system that's kind of energetically bonded to. The energy is flowing this way. Very reminiscent of shallograms again, where they can have currents. I never found a good one. Here's a good one of like the way it sprays here. It just takes the particle and sprays material in this manner. So maybe something like that happened with the Hawaiian island, where under Australia was a significantly larger particle. There was one forming generally by the colliding currents, essentially just forming a particle by the process. And the largest particle it formed. Like it formed lots of particles, but the largest one it formed maybe was the one under where all the currents were colliding that then ended up being Hawaii, which was initially forming just a large region and just radioactively decayed as it was shaped to basically be broken down into its constituents as the Earth expanded, but probably also like its novaing of this process really participating in breaking the Earth apart. And maybe that's really what's going on with any lava, is it's going through some sort of nova type structure like this, where it's like energetic state is vibrationally spinning out to a lower energy level as heat's dissipated. Like there's a actual like change in the structure to a more shallow, like ammonite shallogram type of way than a more of just a uniform. Okay, I've spoken enough. See you guys soon. Peace out.